Hey guys, Form 4 wait times for suppressors have hit record lows, and every single suppressor in the country sold out in the last month, so it's probably a good time to talk about some suppressor topics. When guys are in the market to purchase a suppressor, they tend to focus exclusively on things like signature reduction and back pressure, but the thing that's going to make or break your shooting experience is, more than likely, everything else. For example, how much does the overall package weigh on the end of your gun? How does the mount system work? How expensive are the muzzle devices, and can you find one that'll fit every host you want to put your suppressor on? I've made a couple videos talking about suppressor mount systems in the past. We've done YHM, Phantom, SRX, we talked about Reardon, Atlas, and the entire Plan B ecosystem. And every time I do one of those videos, I always like to at least mention that direct threading a suppressor has some serious potential advantages, even if it's not that appealing to a lot of guys at first glance. So, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Let's rock and roll. This video was made possible by our channel sponsor, Venture Surplus. Last month we took a look at one of their US-made reproduction Rhodesian Recon vests, but I didn't have enough surplus molly pouches to fully build it out without mixing camo patterns, and there was no way in hell I was paying $60 for Ranger Green surplus double mag pouches to get it set up. Venture recently started stocking magazine and utility pouches made by the same company that makes these new RRVs. These are new production versions of the classic Eagle Industries molly pouches available in Ranger Green and Multicam. By mixing and matching new and surplus pouches, we can set up the RRV as a pretty capable macro chest rig. 6 magazines, radio, GP pouch for medical stuff, a cat tourniquet, and a molly flashbang pouch. Hey, if it fits, it ships. You know how cats are. I know the clone correct thing is to use the Eagle Industries flat admin pouch on the upper part of the chest rig, but that's kind of redundant on an RRV. They already have a Velcro flap at the top for document storage. Check out Venture Surplus for new or surplus chest rigs, molly pouches, and other gear. If you click the link in the description and use my discount code, you'll save 10% off your order. Thanks to Venture Surplus for sponsoring this channel. Thank you guys for watching. Let's get back to the show. So the main thing quick attach suppressor mounts have going for them is convenience. And we call them quick attach mounts, not quick detach mounts, because there's really nothing you can do to get a suppressor off in a hurry if you've actually been using it. Between the potential for carbon locking and the fact that your gloved hand can only sustain temperatures of up to a certain point for a certain duration, attaching suppressors can be done pretty quickly, but detaching them is mostly an administrative task. There are some other theoretical advantages of quick attach mounts, but they don't stand up to Hitchens' razor, so let's move on to direct thread. The first potential upside of direct thread suppressor mounts is that they generally reduce the weight and length of the suppressor package on the end of your gun. How much difference there is will depend on the mount system you're using. If you switch from chemo to direct thread, you'll save upwards of a quarter pound on the end of your gun. Simpler and lighter adapters, like the Reardon Atlas on the Polonium K, do mitigate that somewhat. The Polonium direct thread adapter weighs slightly less than the Reardon Atlas adapter, and being able to nix the muzzle device saves us a couple more ounces. Granted, that's not a lot of weight, but it is way out at the extreme end of the gun, which means it's going to affect handling a lot more than weight at the back of the gun, and it depends on why you want to regularly detach the suppressor from the front of your gun. If it's just for transport and storage, that's one thing. But if you're motivated by a desire to shoot occasionally without the suppressor because it makes the gun handle better, well, maybe you should be using a lighter, more compact suppressor system. There is a notion about using a muzzle brake as a sacrificial baffle to protect the main baffle stack of your suppressor from erosion. I think those concerns are largely overstated. However, if we're talking about suppressors like the Huxworks Flow series, then the muzzle device is actually an integral part of the suppressor system. My understanding is that Huxworks muzzle devices direct the muzzle blast in such a way that it can be harnessed by the blast chamber of the Hux suppressors, which is probably why Huxworks muzzle devices are bigger, heavier, and more complicated than a lot of other systems. The blast chamber of most traditional suppressors is smooth and tubular and does not require a special muzzle device in order to make the suppressor work. So this is the extremely valuable, rare, expensive PMAG that may be causing a malfunction in your MBR.
Nice fireballs, jackass.
The second reason to go with the direct thread suppressor is to avoid the issue of return to zero or zero shift. A lot of the suppressor interfaces on the market have very solid and repeatable lockup. As such, they should have very consistent return to zero. If you zero with the suppressor on, then remove it and reattach it, you should get very close to your original zero. And very close is pretty good, but if it was the best, we wouldn't have to use words like very and close. The other option is to zero with the suppressor off, so you know you can always remove it and get that perfect zero back if you really need it. But then you are virtually guaranteed to get a zero shift when you attach the suppressor because you're hanging a bunch of additional weight off the end of the gun. You're also changing the way that the bullet and the combustion gases interact with each other as they come out of the barrel. Attaching a suppressor to the end of your gun can change your zero in two directions the same way that changing a muzzle device can. Also, once again, we have to ask the question, why is the suppressor coming off? If it's just to make the gun shorter for transport, that's fine, but then is it worth the potential risk of losing your zero? If that's not the case, then why did you buy a suppressor in the first place? Are you just going to take it out for special occasions, but you want to do the majority of your shooting unsuppressed? If that's your game plan, fine. Just seems like a lot of money to spend on something you don't seem to actually want.
Mr. Hop, are you ready?
Nope.
Do you understand the course of fire?
This thing might be a little on the dirty side.
Yeah.
Come on, baby.
There she goes. All right. Stand by, good sir.
Oh my god, how much adjustment can you do?
Ooh, look, a butterfly. It's pretty.
And the third big advantage of direct thread suppressors is that they make tuning the host weapon much simpler. Trying to tune a gun to shoot well both with and without a suppressor is a balancing act. You don't want your gun to turn into an unreliable piece of garbage when the suppressor is removed. You still want the gun to operate if you have underpowered ammunition, or it gets very cold, or it gets badly fouled up. Without any way to rapidly adjust your gas system when you toss a can back on there, it's going to become extremely overgassed, which makes it less pleasant to shoot, less easy to control, and will also increase parts wear. That's still probably the better alternative. It's okay for an AR-15 at least to run pretty hard with a suppressor on it. It's not going to kill itself in really short order. Increased recoil and jets of gas to your tender eyeballs is just the cost of doing business. Obviously, there are ways around this, but they tend to be more expensive, more complicated, and often have their own downsides. The whole point of the Rifle Speed Dissipator project was to build a gun that was reliable and comfortable to shoot both with and without a suppressor. And it works great, but the rifle speed system is heavy, bulky, expensive, and causes some interference problems at the front of the gun. All stuff that we went over in that video. You can also go out and buy some boutique bullshit gun that has a fancy gas regulator. It's going to have a lot of those same downsides. And no self-respecting modern man should really own a short-stroke piston gun. If you're going to put a direct thread suppressor on the end of the gun and exclusively shoot suppress, then you only need to tune the gas system in one way, down. What if I took the same 12.5 mid-length gas barrel and wanted to tune it exclusively for suppressed shooting? Instead of getting a $200 rifle speed adjustable gas block, I would get a $20 YHM suppressor gas block. That would also solve the handguard selection and mounting compatibility issues at the front of the gun. I could also just start with a barrel that was a little bit more conservatively gassed and then get the rest of the job done with buffer weight tuning. I have a build with a 10.3-inch crane spec barrel. Those have extremely small gas ports, and they're known to really only want to cycle high-pressure military ammunition. Turns out that's a pretty good barrel to direct thread a suppressor onto. The overall length ends up being a little bit less than a 16-inch rifle, and I don't think anybody ever had an issue transporting those to the range. Pair that with an H3 buffer, and it shoots pretty good. Of course, there are more technical and elegant ways to tune the gun, and the end result would probably be a little bit better, but I think you get the idea. There's also a separate argument to be made for direct threading a suppressor to a 16-inch barrel, rather than using a mount interface system with a very long, complicated flash hider pin and weld to a 14.5, 13.9, or God help us, a 13.7. Anyway, that's some stuff to think about if you had otherwise dismissed the idea of a direct thread suppressor. And welcome, by the way, to everybody who just joined the NFA Owners Club in the last couple of months, you lucky bastards. To everybody else, don't worry, you can just enjoy feeling quietly superior to all these people who swore up and down that they would never buy a suppressor because the $200 tax stamp was an affront and they didn't want to give their information to the ATF, and, well, now that we all know that was just copium for not being willing to drop $500 and not get instant gratification out of it, we can all have a little chuckle to ourselves. Thank you guys for watching. If you'd like to support this channel, you can do so via the links in the video description. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and I'll see you guys next time.